All right, here we are with desk riser. You can put a laptop on this or a desktop computer or use it as a work surface to stand and do some of your work. So this whole unit would sit on a desk or a tabletop. And so we have a couple features here. Basically, you can see these holes and you can adjust these pegs according to the angle or the height you want. So it'll accommodate kind of a wide range of heights, and I kind of like that feature. This side I have two pegs in, and that will kind of help pinch the piece of plywood in between that. So, you know, I haven't sanded this one or put a finish or a paint on it or anything, so I'm counting on you to, you know, have yours turn out a little bit, you know, better than this, obviously. But I think this is a good project. I think you can be really successful with it, and I'm going to show you how to make it. The first step is selecting your parts for the triangle piece. Okay, so these are on the ends, and I'm trying to find three pieces that are the same thickness. So when I lay them all up, I don't want any of them that are drastically different in thickness. I want them to be about all the same thickness. So then I'm going to kind of lay these out how they're going to go, and this part might seem a little tricky at first, but they kind of stagger each other around. So all three of these pieces are the exact same length, and they're cut at a 30-degree angle, and the length that I chose was 20 1/8, and they are just under 2 inches in width, so they're 1 7/8 in width. And this is the front, so this is the front side. The holes on this side end up going up a little bit further, but the holes are drilled in the same locations. So you just need to do this, drill these holes 4 times in 4 pieces. The bottom piece you're just going to set aside. So this is for each side. You'll drill the holes in the 2 top pieces on the left side and the 2 top pieces on the right side. So those holes, and you'd want to use a pencil on this. I grabbed a pen because you can see it a little better on the camera. But these holes are going to be 6 inches over is where you're going to start. And then I like to find the center going this way, so it's just under 1 inch is the center, so I just cheated that back just a little bit, and that's the center point. So from there I'm going to work down, and I'm going to go at 1 inch increments all the way down. So I can just hold my tape measure anywhere now. I still left it at 6 inches, and I can mark it at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and I just keep going down until I'm at 6 the other way. So I just have to go 1 more inch now. So I'm going to go 1 more inch, and then, you know, a good way to do this also is you can take your square and you can make that mark a little bigger if you want. We want to be kind of accurate with these, because if you're not accurate, your shelf top will, you know, lean a little bit. So that will kind of help you out if you can be a little bit accurate. Once I mark all those, another nice tactic is to grab a nail punch or even a nail or screw or really anything, and just put it at the intersection. Just tap it with a hammer just real gently enough to dent that center point where you want to drill that. Okay, so then I'm going to drill my holes. I'm going to use a 3/16 inch diameter drill bit, and I could probably drill these on a hand drill. You just have to try to keep it nice and level. Do the best you can, or you can drill on a drill press. That would be a little bit better if you have access to a drill press. If you're using a drill press, put a piece of scrap wood underneath, and that will help avoid tear out. So even if you're not using even if you're using a hand drill, if you put a piece of scrap underneath it, it'll turn out a little bit nicer. You won't get the tear out. Otherwise, you'll end up with some tear out that's undesirable. So you might want to try to avoid that. So you're going to do that to the 2 top pieces. You're going to drill all your holes. Then we'll go on to the next step. Alright, I wanted to show you the difference between tear out and non-tear out. So that would be, non-tear out. See how clean that is on both sides really, because it doesn't tear out on the front, it tears out on the back. And now this side, see how bad the tear out is? It's because I didn't have a board underneath it enough to protect it. So because I stacked these together when I drilled them, I only had tear out on the back. If you're going to stack them together and then drill them, you have to be really precise. It'd probably be better if you just drilled one at a time, because you don't want these moving at all. Sometimes people put a little tape on there to help hold together, but you might just be better off just drilling one at a time, because if they shift or move around, it's not going to work out. Okay, this part gets a little confusing, so I'm going to try to give you a pointer on how to make it less confusing. So I'm going to lay these out. I have all my holes drilled, so remember I'm drilling holes in 4 pieces, and there's 2 that don't have any holes in them at all. So once I get them like this, I need to know which sides that I'm connecting with the pocket holes. Alright, and I want my best side to be out. That looks good. So I know I'm going to have to connect pocket holes here, here, and here. I'm working my way around clockwise. So I'm just going to flip it over, put an X on there, flip it over, put an X on there, flip it over, put an X on there, and now I know where my pocket holes need to go. So then I can do that with my next side. Now remember, these are a mirror image of each other. Okay, so this side's one of my sides that has a little more tear out. Okay, I'm going to put an X underneath it, so that's a mirror image. See how they're opposite of each other? This one here kind of is bad on that side, so I'm going to put an X right here, and I'm going to slide that one underneath. So I have my 2 sets is what I'm doing here. And then this one here, it doesn't really matter. This one turned out pretty good on both sides. It looks a little worse right here, so I have my 2 X's now. So what I'm getting at is when I flip this up like this, I want all my pocket holes on the inside where I'm not going to see them. So now I won't see these holes as much, and I won't see these as much. I'm trying to keep them out of the outside where maybe you can see them just a little bit more. Alright, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to drill some pocket holes. So my X is going to go into my machine this way, and I'm going to try to drill 2 holes fairly close to each other. And this part might be a little tricky. If you're using the machine, I might actually have a mark on there for you of where to put your board. But I'm going to give it some gas. These holes are pretty close together, so you can see how close those are together. It does pop through just a little bit, okay, but I figured, well, we need to have 2 screws. I think it will be a little bit better, and I'm just going to go with that. So now I'm going to go over to this side, all right, and I'm look at my X again. I'll put that in there. I have about 1/4 inch right here, and then I'm going to drill those. So I'm going to go ahead and drill all the pocket holes. So I'm doing 6 per side, so I'm going to drill 12 holes. Alright, my next step is to start connecting the triangle pieces together. I laid all this out right now just so I don't do this incorrectly. And I'm going to clamp it down to the table. I could put just a little bit of glue right here, so that would make it just a little bit stronger, just a little bit of glue, and then I would set it right here. And then C-clamps work really good for this. Okay, this is a C-clamp. I don't have a big enough C-clamp here. These quick grip clamps, they work okay. So this button gives it big adjustments. This one's minor. And that's a release, and this tightens it. So I could put this on that joint and then clamp it. I'm trying to keep it nice and flush and get it all ready the best I can. So for this, I'm going to use this square driver bit right here, and I'm going to use these square head screws. So I got these square head screws and this driver bit. These are 1.25 inches in length, and they have a square head on the back. So I'm going to set this up right here, and I'm going to put one in at a time. So I'm trying not to put my hand right in the direction of where the driver bit would be if I slip. And then I'm going to go nice and easy on this one. Notice how I'm pushing really hard on the back of the drill, but I'm going really slow on the trigger. Okay, these are fine thread screws. They're made for hardwood. Now technically poplar is a hardwood, but it's fairly soft in density, but it seems to be working pretty good. That's why I suggested a little bit of glue, because I think it'll be just a little stronger with a little bit of glue. Just in case you put the screw in a little bit too far, I think that will kind of help out. So I'm just working my way around. I'm trying to line it up. Okay, I'm keeping my hand out of the way once I get started. Okay, and then I'm going to go on to the next one. And my hand is kind of in the way. Alright, and then I'm going to go on to the next one. So this one I have to pull together just a little bit. Alright, and so now the next step will be sanding these up really good. So you can use a power sander, like an orbit sander. Or if you have a square pad sander, you could use one of those. Okay, but we're trying to use like a flat sander. You don't want to, you can even hand sand them with a block. So here's an orbit sander. I could go around here real nice with the orbit sander. I'm going to do both sides right now. It's a little bit easier right now before they're connected. I'm going to do both sides, so that will make it a little bit better. Alright, now I'm working on these horizontal connecting pieces. So they have what's called a dado groove in there, and that's going to help connect this. Help give this project some strength. So we're trying not to break off this chunk, and what will help prevent that is from not forcing this together with a hammer. So we're going to have to sand it a little bit and get it ready. But before we can put this on, we're going to mark we're going to put 2 screws right here. So we're going to mark those. It appears to be just over an inch, like 1 1/16 inches. So I can use my square again. I could actually do all 3 at once if I want. Okay, this square is a pretty large square, so I can line them all up together. Alright, you have to kind of eye it up nice. And then I found my pencil mark, and I just went across all 3. So I'm trying to find the center of this groove is what I'm trying to do. Now I'm going to measure down a 1/2 inch on both sides. So from here I go a 1/2 inch. Okay, here I go a 1/2 inch. Alright, I'm coming back this way. I'm going a 1/2 inch that way. See, are you seeing what I'm doing here? I'm just making my marks for where I want the screws. So I'm going a 1/2 inch from both ends, and then I go this way a 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'll hold it a little closer to the camera. So we're trying to go a 1/2 inch down and a 1/2 inch up on both sides on this line. Okay, so once I have that ready, I can get out I'm looking for a drill bit about the size of the head of the screw. Okay, I'm going to put plugs in this because it makes it look a lot nicer. So this is a 3/8 Forstner bit. So see, I'm going to go about, not quite to that shelf there, that ledge, when I drill this. So I'm going to put this in the drill. I'm going to line it up. Okay, and then I'm going to go down. Okay, almost to that ledge. So if I go if I show you how deep I am, I'm not quite to that ledge. I'm a little bit, about 1/4 inch deep is where I'm at. So I'm going to drill both of those. Okay, I'm centered right on my mark. You don't want to go too far, right? If you go too far, then you're going to break through this groove, and then the board's not going to, it's not going to work. You're going to have to put another screw hole in there. It's not going to look quite as good. Okay, I'm not pushing very hard. I'm taking my time. So I'm going to find a pretty small drill bit. It could even be smaller than this. This is about 1/8 of an inch. Okay, and I'm going to hang this over the side of the table. And I'm going to drill 2 holes all the way through. So now these holes are going all the way through the board. They're pilot holes. These ones are just countersink holes. They don't go all the way through. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I have to do 12 of these holes, 6 on each end of the board. And you do that on all 3 of these boards. And then you can sand these boards up nice. You can take some hand sandpaper and you can knock the edges off a little bit. You know, take these corners and knock those down so they're not so sharp. Spend quite a bit of time sanding this up real nice, okay? Alright, so to put the supports on, the first thing you need to make sure is you have your triangles going the right way. So these holes that you just drilled, those should be on the inside. And you just want to make sure that, you know, they're lining up correctly. So that there's a little bit of an angle if it goes this way. And so all you're doing is spacing these out. And I just set it straight down on the table. And I put this brace at the bottom. And the only tricky part was this bottom screw right here. I wanted to make sure I didn't point it downward. It'll break right to the bottom. I angled it in just a little bit. I put this screw in first, the top one. And then this one I angled in just a little bit. So that way it wouldn't break through or crack the bottom. Okay, so that's really important. So I put that bottom brace on. I had it nice and flat on the table. You could even clamp it down to the table while you're doing this. And then I moved over to this side. And I did the same thing on this horizontal support. I put it all the way down to the table. I put my 2 screws in, and that made it, you know, a lot nicer. So then I have my 3rd brace, my final brace, and this one I kind of I left it off, and I was just gonna put it in about the middle here. And I was just going to leave it off until I get it to the right height that I want it. And then I might put a screw in. Even just having it sitting in here, like a snug fit, will be fine without the screws. It will just kind of help secure it a little bit. Now if these don't fit good on here, I made these slots just a little bit too small. So that way once you sand these a little bit, and you can even file this a little bit or sand this a little bit, then it'll be like a perfect fit. I didn't want to make it too sloppy. This is Poplar. It sands really fast, and it shouldn't be too big a deal to sand this up. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of where you're at with this. So then the next part is really easy. You're just cutting these dowels. I have a really long dowel. When you cut the dowels, you're going to use a hand saw to cut them. You're not going to use any power saws because it's just way too dangerous, obviously. So just use a hand saw to cut the dowels. I cut them at 2 inches long, and they turned out to be a pretty good height. So then the next thing is when you put this board on here, I noticed that it does slide down a little depending on what angle you have it. So the board just gravity takes it down a little bit. So that's why I put 2 pegs in there. And if you find it still moving around too much for you, you could just put 1 little screw in there. The screw won't actually go into any, you can just put it on this board. So you could just mark it. I'll find my pencil here. So once you decide about how you like it, you can just mark it, and that's where your screw will go. It'll just be 1 little screw right on that 1 dot. Okay, and you just don't put it in the board very far. You just go in just a little bit, and I can make sure you get some smaller screws for that. And that screw will just hit that peg and it'll stop this from falling, but you can still remove this. So this top board, I want you to take some time and really sand it up good on the edges. So this is just plywood. It's kind of got a nasty edge, so you can round that a little bit. Or if you've used a router before, you could router that edge to make it a little bit nicer. So the last step is just filling these holes with the plugs. Alright, so it'll look a lot better if you fill these holes with some plugs and sand them down. So I'll show you how to use the plug cutter again if you haven't used it before. All right, I'm over here with the plug cutter. So here's the plug cutter, and I'm on the drill press. The plug cutter works the best on the drill press. And I'm just gonna turn it on. Remember, I don't have to drill very deep on this. I only drilled, about a little over 1/4 inch deep, and I just take my straight screwdriver, snap off the plug. Okay, and then the part was on the top of the board, that goes into the hole first. There's a dot on there. And when I do this, I don't put glue inside the hole because it just doesn't work right. It doesn't really coat it, and it actually falls out later. So you got to be careful of that. So I'm going to open the glue bottle, and now I'm just going to get a little glue around the outside of the plug. So basically what I'm doing here is just putting glue around the edge, and then I wipe my finger around it. Yeah, I'm going to get a glue on my finger. That gives me a nice gluing surface. So then when I can come over here, and then I just line this up. And my grain's going this way, so I like to line it up with the grain, and I push that plug in. So then I can sand this really nice, and I can sand that plug flush with the wood. So it's going in pretty good. I could probably just tap it. Oh, there, it's all the way in now. So now I could take my orbit sander, my hand sandpaper, and just sand it flush, and then I won't see that screw. It'll look a lot nicer. So once I clean this thing up, man, it's going to be pretty sweet. And that's what I'm looking for you to do, is to really make it look good by your sanding and the finished end of it, painting it or putting a finish on.